Hi, it's Bo. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking about some low water plants that are good for any garden, but that I picked out for my cottage garden. And a lot of times when we think of cottage gardening, we think of roses and hydrangeas to add romance. But you can use very low water plants and also have a cottage garden. Now, cottage gardening is sort of a no rules, informal garden style that is plant focused. It's usually busy, but it doesn't have to be. And it's full of workhorse type plants that are easy and reliable to grow. So, this is kind of the color palette of my garden. And I'm going to be beefing up my perennial border with these plants this weekend. So, without further ado, now this you may recognize as marigold. It smells just so super wonderful. It's a strong sort of herbal scent, but it's kind of a medicinal scent that I guess you either love or you hate. If you're a rabbit, you hate them, or a vampire maybe. So marigolds ward off a number of garden pests, rabbits, deer, but also pests in the soil, such as nematodes, that can hurt the roots of your other plants. So marigolds are kind of like these guardians of the garden. Most of them are annuals that self-seed. Most of the hybrids, this is a Mexican marigold, I think gold medal. And I believe this is perennial. I hope that it is. Here we have sea thrift. At least that's what I call it. The name here is Armeria ballerina lilac. And I just love these. I think they're almost like tiny little alliums. They add an interesting architectural interest with these little round pom-poms. And they're very low water. They're really nice for lining a pathway. Now this one I would say is low to moderate water. This is lower petalum purple pixie. It's going to be a shrub up to maybe 3 feet tall. And that's just going to add some depth and nice dark color. I'll put it behind the bed. These are one of my favorite plants to design with. It's a perennial, but I'd say it's relatively short-lived. You're probably not going to have it in your garden for a dozen years or more. I've heard that it starts to look a little bit shabby and need replacing after about 3 years, but you know, that's longer than most annuals. And it has a look almost like a foxglove, which is a classic cottage garden plant, but in a perennial with these really beautiful iridescent purple tubular flowers. Just really gorgeous. And this is kind of a lower plant. You can see here again, little plant biology. See how the flower, plant. See how the leaves are very linear. So that's showing you that this is a drought adapted plant. Doesn't need a lot of water for those thin leaves. This is a really one that caught my eye. I design a lot with salvias, and I think of salvias as mostly being in the blues and purples and red category. Sometimes you get a pink, which is a little unusual. This butter yellow was very unusual to me, and that's Salvia Golden Girl. Salvias all of these are really summertime bloomers. It's June and they're blooming, and most of them will bloom well into the fall. It's a long bloom time. Next, look at this beauty. Now, alströmerias, also called Peruvian lilies, are just wonderful, wonderful flowers for any garden. There are some that get really pretty tall, maybe like, maybe even 3 feet tall, and others that are lower to the ground. And they come in a whole wide range of colors. This one is particularly vivid, and I just kind of liked how it goes with all of the others. Now, I tend to plant my plants when they're not blooming and in the cooler months so that they can establish their roots. But there is something to be said about having the plants when they're in bloom. It's not the smartest time to plant them as far as a plant health and survivability standard, but it is when they're mostly available at the nursery and when you can kind of see how the plants look together. Because even if you know intellectually or from pictures what a plant looks like, when you're planting everything, when the plants are dormant or not blooming, it's almost like flower arranging in the dark. Um, so this kind of helps me see how my border's going to be. Oh, also, the great thing about Alstroemeria, at least in our climate in the San Francisco Bay Area, they do die back every year, but then they sprout up again from the base. And so you can just remove the spent stems and then it just comes right back up again. So they're really easy care. And I think that's a lot easier than plants that have different rules about when to cut back and how far to cut back. This is a really no-fail plant. You know, when it's all dead and smushed to the ground, you just pull out those brown dead old stems and the new green ones come back up. So here again is this wonderful collection of really low water, fuss-free, low maintenance plants. And you see how romantic and gorgeous they are together. And you really can have a vibrant cottage style garden in California with very low water plants, very easy care plants. So hope this gave you some ideas. Enjoy!